Hello, this is Danny Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. Well, the Idris is in the game, and even more so since CIG has announced no fewer than 9 more waves of Idris sales at ILW. The first will begin at the start of Anvil Day, which would be 9 a.m. Pacific. This will be followed by 5 more waves on Anvil Day at 4-hour intervals during the first day of Anvil at the ILW. Then, at the start of the first day of the finale on the 26th, there will be 3 more waves, each also at 4-hour intervals. So there is going to be even more Idris in the game going forward, and one of the consequences of that will be increased pressure to deliver on what is still missing for the Idris. And my purpose in this video is going to be to talk about what those still missing things are. And top, most global level, is what is missing from the Idris is something for it to do. Yes, you can fly around and marvel at how big it is and show off about how much disposable income you have and coast through even the most challenging of the current missions or use it as some grossly overpowered cargo ship, but ultimately that is going to get old really fast. What is missing is something that will, first of all, challenge the Idris, and not merely that, but make you feel that you don't just need the Idris, but need to get a player in every one of those turrets and fill up that massive flight deck with ships and pilots. And more than that, it needs to be something to do that reflects that everything about the Idris screams long-duration deep space missions. It isn't just enough to create a task that is challenging to the Idris, but one really suited to the type of ship that the Idris is. And I'll be returning to the specifics of that mission later in this video. But I'm first going to branch from there to the things not in the game that will be needed to make that mission work. And first among those is that if you're going to be making things that will challenge an Idris or similar, you're going to need to be sure that other players aren't accidentally stumbling it into certain defeat. And you can't just do it by filtering by reputation, because a lot of low-rep people will have plunked down the simoleons to buy an Idris. In other words, you need to be able to filter by what ship you are piloting, which makes some sense. And not only that, but we need more filtering of missions in the Mobiglass, particularly cargo missions. But just as much as having lesser ships take the mission, it is also not having those lesser ships accidentally stumble into the war zone, a place way beyond them. Secondly is a range of capabilities that we'll group together and called Bedlogging 2. 2A is the ability to bedlog out on a ship that is not yours, like the Idris, and then be able to log back in on the same ship that's not yours if it is still in the game. But this means that 2B, there needs to be a way for the system to hold you at the menu screen if the ship isn't yet in the game when you return, which implies 2C, there needs to be a way to override that hold if you don't want to wait. But things can go wrong, so 2D, there needs to be a way that if the ship is destroyed while you are bedlogged in it, you will be regened at your stored regen facility other than the one in that now destroyed ship. Then there will be times that you bedlog out in a ship other than yours, knowing that the ship is not where you want to be at the start of the next game session. So 2E, you need to be able to specify an option for where to depart the ship if it arrives there. This could be either at a specific named port or any full-service location that has habs and ship hangars. Then the flip side of this would be to log out at, for example, a station, but to board, in a bedlogged state of course, a particular ship if it arrives while you're bedlogged out. And then finally, since for various reasons you don't want to allow an unlimited number of people to be able to bedlog on a single ship, there needs to be a way for the captain, when in port, to disembark as many of those people as they need to make bed space. Now, having discussed the realm of bunker room, let's go to the flight deck, because those players will also have ships that they will have landed there. As long as those players are in the game, any party member has the right to use their ship. But what happens when those players log out, either for a short time or a longer time? Do these ships disappear, which can leave the remaining players short-handed in their abilities? But if they do disappear, what happens when the player returns? Do they instantly reappear? That raises a whole different set of problems as to what could now be something else parked in the same place as their ship is trying to reappear. So the safer route is to just let the plane remain and remain available to party members to use. But what happens when the player leaves, returns someplace else, and then files an insurance claim on their ship that is sitting in this Idris? Does the ship then disappear? Or do you suddenly have a ship on board your Idris that you don't own and have no legal ability to access? Can you be trespassing and get a crime stat on board your own ship? How does the Idris captain clean up their flight deck? And then what happens when the last player logs out and the Idris is stored at some station? Is the ship able to be stored with all this whole nested tree of internal things owned by so many different players? And then there is the particular case of what happens when the ship captain themselves have to log out or is disconnected. Again, either for a short period or a long one. There may be dozens of persons and ships reliant upon them, so having the Idris suddenly become anything less than fully functional isn't accepted. But then who gets to run the ship and have the rights of the captain? Also, if we're talking about the Idris as a platform for long-duration missions, then there has to be an ability for ships on it to be refueled and rearmed from stockpiles on the Idris, and then eventually rebuilding the stockpiles on the Idris itself through some sort of carrier onboard delivery mechanism. Which brings up the question of what ship can carry a size 12 torpedo. So eventually, if we get all that in place, the Idris will finally be able to shine as the ship and can be ready to do things it is supposed to be able to do. So what you create as a mission? What would really challenge a fully crewed Idris, and ideally also be far enough from the usual areas of operation in the game that you couldn't run into it by accident? Of course, there are lots of possibilities, but here is mine for discussion. You got your brown pants on? A deep space astronomy study of Pyro has revealed dozens, possibly even hundreds of points of non-natural energy in the cometary halo around Pyro, also known as the Oort cloud. For those of you unfamiliar with the term, the cometary halo is a huge region of space, far beyond the outermost planet, where long-period comets originate. The Oort cloud for our solar system starts at about 299 tetrameters, a tetrameter being a billion kilometers. So the UEE isn't sure what to do, particularly because Pyro isn't a UEE planet, and partially because the area is so huge even for the UEE Navy. But Big Money and Stanton and Terra are not at all satisfied with the idea of Vandal in a neighboring star system, so they are writing big checks to the Mercenary Guild to fund exploration and eradication missions. But first, there's going to have to be setting up and maintaining a logistics chain to get there. Welcome to a need to have starfarers in the game, finally. But also, because of the distances involved, you aren't going to be given a marker to exactly where the hostiles are. You'll be directed, at best, to the center of a 1,000,000-kilometer zone of space, so your first task will be sending out scouting craft to seek out the enemy, if any. So not only is there a need for logistic ships, but also a need for deep-sensing scouting ships, like the Terrapin. Or you could just wait and let the Vandal scouts reach you, eventually. An escalating set of encounters will occur until eventually reaching ships comparable to the Idris or larger. Payoff from the mission will be in the form of bounties based on the size of the ships defeated. After the largest encounter, another mission to another zone of the cometary halo will become available. And that, in broad brush, is the kind of mission I would think would really make the Idris have a way of playing a role in the verse ideally suited to being an Idris, rather than a vastly overdone version of some other ship. Now, an update on my giveaways. We have the annual IAE Week giveaway coming up later this year for the shiny stainless steel series shipping ship, the Starlancer Max, and then the Grow the Channel ship giveaway at 20,000 subscribers for the winner's choice of the marvelous multi-role multiplayer mining meta, the Arasta, or the main new big box bargain bazaar, the Merchantman. 1 entry per video. Members, you're entered automatically. Everyone else, just subscribe and comment with the secret word. And the secret word for this video is either of the two science fiction movies I made a nod to in the image of what my idea for an Idris mission would look like. Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Danny Raymond with Ray's Guide.